Hi and welcome to this McGraw-Hill Education Learning Conference. I'm Tessa Hunt with McGraw-Hill Education, and I will be the webinar moderator for today's session. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few quick housekeeping items. This event is being presented in listen-only mode, which means you will be able to hear the presenters, but they won't be able to hear you. However, that doesn't mean you cannot participate. You are welcome to type your questions in the Q&A panel throughout the session, and we will answer them towards the end of the session. Joining us today is Carolyn Schneider. Carolyn's session, titled In-Depth Components in a Successful Direct Instruction Implementation, will focus on the development of professional learning objectives, explaining the rationale and plans for action. Carolyn Schneider is an educational consultant whose practice has focused on improved academic achievement in Title I and special education settings. Her firm, DI Consultants LLC, has trained over 5,000 teachers in 38 states, Japan, and Canada. She is a contributing author on several direct instruction publications and has published a coaching manual and an administrative leadership manual. I'd now like to turn the session over to Carolyn.
Hello. This session will deal with professional development, and we're looking at the components that are necessary for a strong direct instruction implementation. We all know that the curriculum specialist has a wide array of responsibilities, from researching the programs to selecting the programs and then orchestrating the implementation. But the strong curriculum specialist is also proactive in planning for professional development. We all want our teachers to have stronger skills and to be more confident with the program. As we look ahead, we're looking at the very big question: how do we sustain and maintain direct instruction implementations with the fidelity that's necessary for students to achieve maximum learning? So, as Tessa said, we will work with the components, the rationale, and we will also have some action plans. So, let's begin. As we look at the 5 principles of effective professional development, we're looking at content-specific learning, active engagement, the teaching models, collaborative learning, and practical application. And if we look at the first, the content-specific learning. The content-specific learning has to do with exactly what it's saying, having the teachers understand the rationale of the program. And they've got to also understand the sequence, because realize that this sequence is different from other programs that they may have taught in the past. The teachers need to understand the goals for each level that they're teaching and each subject they're teaching. Another important consideration is this: teachers have to learn how to respect and appreciate that the sequence of the direct instruction programs is different, and that they can't overlay or insert previous curriculums that they've worked with. So we're looking at know the method and teach the method. As we look at active engagement, now we're looking at specific sessions of professional development. And I know we started out and we talked about the curriculum specialists, but in your districts, I know some of you are under the title of literacy coach, academic coach, instructional and interventionist coordinator, instructional specialist, special education supervisor. So we're talking to all of you whom we so appreciate and who will be working with training your teachers and providing professional development. So active engagement. Now, the first mistake that a lot of schools make is this: they feel if they're doing a direct instruction professional development, let's have everybody there. Surely the teachers will get something out of it. That's not the right way to go. You are trying to really build understanding of the program. So work in specific sessions. What do we mean by that? If you were working with your kindergarten teachers, your first grade teachers, second grade teachers on Reading Mastery K, for example, in that session you would have those teachers and perhaps your interventionists and your special needs teachers, but work on specific sessions related to the subject that they are teaching. The teachers will realize this is going to help me tomorrow morning, and this is what I need to listen for. Also, we should have a professional development plan, kind of a monthly plan of objectives we're going to cover. But you're also going to have to immediate needs be aware. I'm saying that wrong. We need to be aware of immediate needs. For example, if teachers don't know how to say the sounds, if teachers have trouble with management, we've got to address that first before we address how to blend sounds. So good professional development is both proactive and reactive when it needs to be. Be organized for these sessions. And for each session, every single session, we always assign a teacher leader, a teacher assistant. And your objective there is to develop teacher leaders within your building and also to identify the teaching strengths that you have. So as we look at this, for example, people say, well, what would you talk about in a professional development session? And you have this handout, friends. It's going to be professional development session topics. And I can also assure you there's more than are on the list. So you might be talking about the management of the students, the organization of materials, the signals, corrections, pacing, data. You might be discussing the mastery tests and how to do remediation. You might be talking about grouping or regrouping. I can assure you, your teachers cannot teach for more than 2 to 3 weeks before the need to know about grouping and regrouping is going to arise. Handling the teacher-student game to help management to increase the on-task behavior. Independent work. Many times teachers will say to me, the students are not able to complete the independent work in the allotted time and they're making a lot of errors. Well then, that is a session to discuss how do we do some pre-teaching on that workbook, how do we do some guided practice. Never let those students open that workbook and reinforce the wrong thing if you know that they are going to have difficulty. So these professional development session topics are on a handout for you. But now let's look at the actual agenda. It's tight. So here you can see an agenda. We're starting at 2:45. And the very first and most important part of this meeting is always starting with sharing success stories. This is a way to lift morale. So a teacher might be telling about a specific student, or they might be telling about a group that's making progress. Oftentimes, this also raises some awareness with the rest of the teachers. Wait a minute, if her group's doing that well, why can't my group do better? Then you can see on this agenda, we're going to address story reading. And this happens to be the kindergarten level. If we don't address the story reading and the changes, your students will not develop the fluency and the prosody that they are capable of doing. And then at the end, we're closing and we're assigning the next teacher leader. But stay with your time, because if you do, teachers will know. We come, we work, we get it done, and again, your objective is the teacher knows how to teach something better tomorrow morning. We're not just trying to get through tomorrow's lesson and see if we can survive and get through. You really want these teachers to develop the skills of understanding what they're teaching, and then the script and the signals and corrections and so on. Our major author, Siegfried Engelmann, has said there are 4 pointers for success for a good DI implementation. And the first one is this: attend to the details. So you can be saying to me, what do you mean by details? Well, details are things such as how you ask comprehension questions when you're teaching reading mastery signature K1 and 2. In corrective reading, it might be that the teacher has given the mastery test and we have certain categories where the students are having difficulty. That's a detail. We've got to know how to work with it. How do we do remediation? So attend to the details. The second item that he talks about is it will take 2 to 3 years for a teacher to really be strong at this program. Well, does this mean that the first year is not going to count? Not at all. I've had the pleasure of working with so many first-year implementations where we raised every single test score. What it does mean is that your teachers, as they become more experienced, will respect and appreciate more these details and the components of the program. The next is treat problems as information. We'd love to say to you, here's a program with no problems for the teachers and no problems for the students. But that isn't going to happen. You're going to have problems. But treat the problems as information, and you will become stronger also at knowing I can handle problems. What would be a problem? Well, let's say that we've got 6 or 7 kindergarten teachers, and 7 of the kindergarten teachers, out of that, 6 are teaching 4 or 5 lessons a week. Pretty nice picture. We're making progress. But one teacher is only teaching 2.5 lessons a week. Now, do you have a problem? You should be saying, yes. Okay, you've got a problem. But now figure out what's going wrong. Why are we only getting 2.5 lessons a week in? Is it that the teacher doesn't know the script? Is it that the pacing is too slow? But there could be a problem with our grouping. Have we misgrouped? So this teacher's doing so many correction procedures that they're not getting through a lesson. Or is it management? So treat problems as information. And then the last one is work hard. This is hard work, but it is worth every effort that you make, because everyone from the authors to your McGraw-Hill professionals, to your teachers, to your outside consultants, to all of you in administration, and then including the students. Everybody works hard at this. And if you do, the results are possible. Let's move ahead and look at teaching models. You can say, well, how am I really going to help that teacher in the classroom? The best is the first item on your slide, side-by-side coaching. This is unique and special to direct instruction. Most programs do not do this at all. Because we have a script, we do have a way to monitor how the lesson is moving. So what happens with that script and what happens with side-by-side coaching, the coach is indeed sitting right next to the teacher or within walking distance. So now, if there's a portion of the lesson that gives these students a little bit of a bump, the coach is going to say, may we pause? And we're going to work on that specific section and get it right. It may be teacher behaviors that need improving. It may be student responses that need improving. But think about this. A good athletic coach, a good music director, doesn't wait till the end of the practice and say, oh, you had a little trouble back there about 10 measures ago in that score of music. No, you address it right then and there, and that's called side-by-side coaching. Then we talk about identifying desired teacher behaviors. Your teachers have to really have an understanding, not what do I do to just get through the lesson, but how should it look? What are the expectations? So via videos, via more professional development, you get your teachers to be strong at identifying the teacher behaviors. Observing strong lessons. Those of you out there working with teachers, you should have a list right now of who your strong teachers are. You're going to use them as a source for demonstration lessons, for model lessons, for more collaboration, and so on. Then the video self-evaluation. Video self-evaluation is beneficial because one of the problems that every coach in the United States is going to tell you is, I can't get to all of my teachers at 8:05 in the morning. So by doing the video, we have the lesson videoed, then the teacher sits down and identifies desired teaching behaviors or where they think they can have improvement, and then discuss it with the coach at a later time. And then team teaching. The coach will always help team teach. This can also be done in a collaborative setting, but it's providing, again, a strong model for that teacher. Moving on, collaborative learning. Collaborative learning is the way to make your implementation come alive. And those of you who have been using DI for a long time, you're aware of this. You may be hitting a type of behavior that we call complacency. It's not that the teachers don't want to teach the program, it's not that they dislike it, but we just don't have the spark with the program that we've had before. Collaborative learning can help light that spark again. So small group sessions. This is where teachers are going to be working with other teachers, maybe on a problem such as varying praise, mastery tests, teachers observing other teachers. This again is where teachers are going to work and stay in a classroom with other teachers. Then the use of McGraw-Hill education resources. There is a vast array of resources that are available for you. And this is called the professional learning environment. So the first is the online course. This can help you in your small sessions, and you can also assign it one-on-one with the teacher. But the online session is going to give you information about the rationale of the program, the overview, everything from how to give the placement test to giving mastery tests, and there will also be segments of teachers teaching with students so the teachers can observe this. The discussion boards. Discussion board is an portal that is used that our teachers and administrators can share. So you can post questions, you can thread in a blog, you can get opinions from other educators. So the discussion board is a way to communicate with the DI community across the world. Now, the YouTube webinars. The districts I'm working with really like these YouTube webinars because they're timely, they're not too long in length, and they really focus in. For example, there might be a webinar on the mastery tests, or there might be a webinar on just placement and grouping and data. Again, my districts have really liked this. So those of you who are conducting professional sessions, you could also pull this in, or you could assign it to a teacher more on a one-to-one basis. But here's the advantage. You've got targeted professional development anytime, anywhere, any place, on any device. As we move on, what we see is the administrator's responsibilities. The administrator responsibilities are countless. They have so much to do. But we're looking at two. One is going to be attending to the academic health of your students. This means that that administrator is really helping with the schedule, making sure we've got the right teachers, that we have the materials, that we have the grouping. So attend to the academic health of your students, but also attend to the professional health of your teachers. Don't let your teachers flounder. You've got to be proactive in planning your professional development. We want for these teachers to experience teacher power and to really know this program from the content to the signals to the script to the corrections. As we move along, we look at our last step, and that's practical application. Well, how do we know it's happened? Well, one, there should be more familiarity with the script. When there's more familiarity, the pacing's going to be faster. You should see teachers monitoring behaviors better. Instead of having their head in the book reading the colored print, they're actually looking at the students and listening for those answers. But not only listening, but judging. Are these kids really confident? Is there automaticity? And then automaticity with your correction procedures and interpreting data. You want teachers to get to the point where they really know, wait a minute, I think this student should move ahead, or we're having too many students in this group who are not passing mastery tests. I'm often asked, what do you work on first? Well, here's your list, and you have this as a handout, listeners. The first is that you're working on the physical setup. You've got to have that physical setup in place. This means a teacher can see every child's face, that lesson starts within 3 minutes, the rules are reviewed, that there's organization, and that the class can start and move ahead, following the script. Will a teacher get every word? Probably not. But we've got to follow that script with consistency so our students know what to do. 100% student responses. We're looking to see that everyone is answering, even our reluctant students. Monitoring students, recognizing and correcting errors. Now comes pacing. Many of you are surprised by that because you think pacing is going to be toward the top of the list. And then praising. You have this as a handout. This is how you go about working with the teacher. Start with number 1 and work your way through. Let's talk about programming strategies and teaching strategies for just a moment. And needless to say, we have a long, long list of programming strategies, but we're going to talk about just 3 here today. One is the sequencing of skills. Teachers have to have respect for the sequence. I've seen teachers in October get very nervous about, well, last year at this time, my students were doing such and such, and they're not doing that here. So the sequence of skills. Each lesson has only 15 to 20% new information. Why would this be? Because many times the students are your most fragile learners, and they need a tremendous amount of repetition. Only a little bit new can be introduced so they get practice. And I mean practice to the point where you get to perfect practice. That's your goal. Then those students can take those skills and apply them to the next challenge. But you should be saying to me, well, Carolyn, how about our high performers? Isn't that going to be too slow? And the answer is yes. So what happens with your high performers? From the time you give the placement test, and most of the placement tests in all of the programs have at least 3 to 5 entry points. Your top performers will start at a higher lesson. Then really watch that you are using the acceleration plans that are there for several of the programs. Within the programs, there will also be some skipping procedures. But you want every day to count. Every day. Just think about this as though your students were your son or daughter. Every day in their life, this lesson should count. They shouldn't be at a lesson that's too hard, so they're frustrated. They shouldn't be at a lesson that is too easy, and they're bored. So always we're going to apply the previous learning and move on ahead. In the teaching strategies, here's where you know a lot about DI, the delivery. The model, lead, test, retest. The script, the signal, the pacing, and the praise. So let's look at the structure of the program. And we're looking at the model, lead, test, retest. This is the way the program is set up. We would never say to a group of students, does anybody think they know this sound? Does anybody possibly know what number this is? No. If you do that, you're allowing misinformation to be in the atmosphere, and that can confuse a fragile learner. So looking at the model lead test, here we go. The first step is always done by the teacher. The teacher's saying, listen, my turn. The second step is the lead. The lead has the teacher and the students answering together. And this is the best gift you can give some of your fragile learners, your students who are reluctant to answer, your students who are shy, your students who don't have confidence, our English language learners who are practicing English. That lead helps them so much. Just think for a minute. How do students learn to say the Pledge of Allegiance? By being led. It's a very secure way to really help that learner. Then we have the test where we test the group, and then the retest on individual terms. So let's look here at our first format for sounds in Reading Mastery K. And look at step A. Step A on this format says, here's a new sound. My turn to say it. When I move under that sound, I'll say it, but it's saying my turn. Look at step B. It is saying my turn again. And step C is even saying my turn again. This is to give a strong model. And all of you who are working with the teachers, do not let the students come in on this model. Be very strict. It's teacher's turn, nobody else. Then at step D, we see the test to see if the students are doing well. So we're looking at our model by the teacher, the lead, the test, the retest. But let's look at what happens at D. If the students do not get the right answer, what happens? That correction procedure, again, is going to use the structure of the model, lead, test. So this is the basis for the program, and for both of teaching of new information and for correcting. Also, once your teachers learn these steps, they will become stronger teachers throughout the school day because they'll apply the model lead test. Okay, let's talk about the delivery. So we will talk about the script. And most people with the script have the same reaction that I did. I thought, I'm a pretty good teacher, and I really don't think I need somebody to tell me what to say and what to do. Well, it took me about 2 weeks to figure out the script was helping my students so much. Why was it helping them? Well, it's stabilizing the teacher talk. So the students are not having to interpret what the teacher wants. It's consistent across all levels of the program. The students can focus on the new information, especially your English language learners. So for example, if I was going to teach a sound, the script would be the same. My turn, here's a new sound. So their focus is going to be exactly on the new sound. The other place that that script really helps is we do not have as much of a problem with students rising from K to 1, 1 to 2, grade 4 to 5, etc. And we don't have to have that adjustment time in the fall for the students to get used to how this teacher is instructing. Yes, the teacher who inherits them may use a little different approach, but the script's the same. So just a note about the script. Let every teacher use their personality to teach that script. I will sometimes see Cheerleader USA who's saying, come on kids, let's say these sounds. Then I'll see teachers who are very laid back, but they still have the right amount of pacing and they're following that script and their signals are good and they're equally effective. But I will tell you one thing you can't be teaching DI, and that is laid flat. The teacher will have to put energy, purpose, and mission into the teaching. Let's talk about signals. Signals are a cueing system that lets the learner know to answer. Again, the security that this gives your students, because they know exactly what is expected. But this helps your teachers, instead of getting 3 or 4 answers in 30 minutes, your teachers are going to be able to get a minimum of 100, and frankly it should be 200 to 300 responses per minute. So you're securing a lot of teaching. You're keeping the kids engaged. But one of the important parts of that signal is that that strong student is not going to call out the answer or dominate this group. Every learner, even my learners who really have to work at processing, what is that sound? What is that number? What is that fact? The students who have trouble processing or just need more think time are being given the benefit to get this right. So many times our fragile learners were absolutely cheated out of getting to mastery, because what happened is when they were just catching on, the chapter was over or the unit was over. So the signals and teaching to mastery help this learner to get the number of practices that they need. Good signals really enhance your teacher power, and it provides a supportive environment again for the shy and reluctant learner. Pacing. Everyone thinks pacing is talking really, really fast. No. 2 goals of pacing. 1, we've got to cover lesson content. We've got to, in most lessons, complete a lesson a day. If we don't cover the content, you're not going to get close enough to your grade level, and you're not going to meet AYP. And in direct instruction, when you work with high-risk learners, you want to be above grade level. You can't be satisfied to be just on grade level. So one of your objectives of pacing is covering the lesson content. The other is student engagement or motivation. Looking at this to inform illustration, what is happening with this is we are looking at how students are progressing with a lesson a day. And with most teachers, if they can get started with a lesson a day at the beginning of the year, those students are so fortunate because they are going to be able to improve. Let's look at this illustration. Please look down at the gold bullets. This is going to be a nice picture, because here we've got a teacher, and it's August 27th, they're just starting. But do you see how many consecutive days this teacher is completing a lesson a day? These students are going to have the possibility of really making strong gains. And pacing does this. We know that we need to get 10 to 12 questions per minute. If we do this, you have about 80% of correct answers. I mean, this picture's getting even prettier. And your students are going to be off task only about 10% of the time. This is the way good DI looks. But if we have a teacher who's only getting 4 responses per minute, and why is this happening? Well, number 1, the teacher doesn't know the script, hasn't prepared for the lesson, or we've got management problems or grouping problems. If we're only getting 4 responses per minute, the students are off task about 70% of the time, and the accuracy drops to 30%. So as we look at this bar graph, here you can see on the right, 12 responses per minute, very little off-task behavior. You look at the left, 4 responses per minute, and you've got 70% of off-task behavior. Listen, any teacher out there who's experiencing about 70% of off-task behavior may start to be thinking, it's time to run away from school. It is not a pretty picture. Okay, so going back to our delivery, the script, the signal, the pacing, and let's take a look at praise. And we are looking at praise, praise, praise. And good praise should be well placed and well delivered. So usually a teacher is going to wait till the end of the format to praise students. But during the format, as you see students who are answering on signal, there's going to be praise inserted at those points. When we look at praise, let's look at our format again. We're back to our kindergarten format in Reading Mastery Signature K, and we've talked about the model, the test, the model lead test on the correction. Now we're looking at the sound, and the individual turns on the retest are happening just at step H, or step E. Then what's happening is look at your very last words of this format. Your very last words are good, saying ah. So this would be an example of specific praise. We don't want teachers to just keep saying, good job, oh, real good job, oh, better than yesterday. No, the praise should be specific. Well, what does this mean? It means that you are addressing the praise to absolutely coincide with the rules of the lesson. Well, what are the rules of the lessons? In connecting math, the rules are different than reading mastery, but let's take corrective reading rules. First rule, and the word is star. So S, sit in learning possession. 2, T, two-handed tracking. This means one hand is on the book and the other hand, all fingers are back, and they are sliding and gliding their index finger. So tell the students, slide and glide. Okay, A, answer on signal, and R, respect other readers. So right here, as we look at these specific praise statements, these statements should be helping the student to understand the rules are important and these are the expectations. So for example, the first praise statement you see here is good sitting in learning position. The second one that you see is good looking at the book or the teacher. Great answering right on signal. Again, during a corrective reading lesson where you're working with the STAR rules, and we also use those STAR rules with levels 2 through 5 in Reading Mastery Signature. Go back to those rules several times during the lesson. Don't just say them at the beginning. Go back and repeat them several times as the lesson's being taught. So, for example, if I'm using the teacher-student game, I'm saying to the students, you're getting a point because I see everybody sitting up. Congratulations, another point, because I'm seeing two-handed tracking. Very good, another point, everybody answered right on signal. So as you look at these specific praise statements, you see some here that apply for connecting math concepts, some for corrective reading, some for Reading Mastery Signature. But going down this list, do you see one that says, great following directions for the first time? And that's something we want to build in, that these students hear a direction and they follow. When you say listen, they are responding to us. For Reading Mastery Signature, you blended those sounds perfectly. For connecting math concepts, look at the one at the bottom here. Good counting. You sounded like a second grader. So if they're a first grader, I'm always upping one grade level. But your praise needs to be specific. And this, again, is a very good topic for your professional development. Here are more praise statements. Your pronunciation of word endings sounds like an adult. Your counting sounds perfectly. You're not droning those numbers. Good talking or reading with expression. You're doing perfect two-handed tracking. Keep reinforcing the rules and the expectations. Direct instruction can help students so much in feeling secure because the structure is the same. The teacher's going to be in one place, they're going to be in another place. That lesson's going to start within 3 minutes or less. The materials are organized. The rules are reviewed. This gives your learner every possibility now to concentrate and focus on the information. One of the phrases I like is, "You are sounding like a scholar." And in direct instruction, we believe in building scholars. We believe that, yes, all of us are responsible for having this program implemented well. But we also believe in building responsibility on behalf of the learner. And always, at the end of the teacher-student game, I will say to the students, you should be so proud of what you've done. I didn't give you these points, you earned them. Tell me what you did to earn these points. And now your students should be able to tell you, I sat tall, I looked at the book, I answered, I talked. They should be able to start telling you the behaviors that are indicated in the rules, whether they are the math rules, your reading mastery signature rules, your connecting math, read to achieve. Every program has specific rules. As we go on, you can see the statement here, you should feel so proud, and smart thinking. As we look at others' praise statements, and again, all of these praise statements are in your handout, listeners. You're showing respect for others. Congratulations on doing a good job. We have gestures, so some teachers will do the fist bump, the high five sign, the pats on the back, and obviously you're going to gear your praise to the learner. You don't gush all over a corrective reading student. You don't say to that student, oh, wouldn't you like to read for Mrs. Schneider? This kid is saying, no, lady, I don't want to read for you. I don't want to read for anybody. Okay, so don't gush all over them. One of the best compliments a teacher can receive is this. Your students value your praise. Think about that for a minute. Your students value your praise. This means that when the teacher praises, the teacher has eye contact with them. There's sincerity, there's enthusiasm, but there's a specific praise that's being given. And as we talk about praise, administrators, praise your teachers. And do not go into a classroom and say, oh, you're doing such a good job. No. Go back to that prioritizing list of teacher behaviors, and here's how you praise the teacher. You're saying, listen, your organization is so strong that the lesson is starting right away. Your rules are posted. You are monitoring your students. You're listening to your students. Your pacing is 10 to 12 responses per minute. Praise according to those teacher behaviors. This should all mirror each other. So teachers should praise students for following the rules and the behavioral expectations. And likewise, administrators, you can make your teachers understand and value the praise more if you are specific about what it is you're seeing. And this lets your teachers know what are the teaching behaviors that we really need to have in place. What makes this program work? And with all professional development, we are looking at building teaching power. You want your teachers to feel as much success in instructing as your students are in being instructed. And with that, I will close and say thank you. This is Carolyn Schneider, and I'm going to turn it back to Tessa Hunt. Thank you.
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you so much. We actually have a couple of questions here. One of them is, how do you get teachers comfortable with in-class coaching? Back to you, Carolyn.
Okay, the first thing that I do is when I train teachers, I try to do a little role play of the coaching so they know exactly what's going to happen. Before I come in and coach, the teacher gets a letter explaining coaching, and one of the things that's important there is you've got to let your students know that this coach is going to be involved with the lesson and helping to teach. If not, a teacher can easily view this, or the students view it as, well, my teacher's not doing this right. So I always try to role play ahead of time, but every single time I coach, I send that letter ahead so the teacher can review with the students. This coach is going to be right here in the lesson. You're going to hear her teaching. You're going to hear her talking. And the third point on that would be, never do I come into a teacher's classroom, even though I've coached many, many times there, without saying, now, Mrs. Smith, will it be all right if we see that if the lesson is giving the students some problems, may I team teach with you? I try to, every time, remember to do that.
Great. One last question, Carolyn. How can you tell if the pace is okay, knowing that pacing is very important? Back to you.
Okay. Two things. One, you are going to look at your pacing schedule to see number of lessons completed in a week. And that's where To Inform can be used, but many of you out there are using paper pencil data. But same thing. How many lessons are being completed in a week? Then, within a lesson, if I have an experienced teacher, I don't do this with the teacher I'm visiting for the first time. If I have an experienced teacher, I will do a tally count. So I have a sweep hand on my watch and I'm tallying to see how many responses are we getting. The other way that I work with this a lot is I will do, in my small group sessions, and sometimes it's an after-school session, I will model 4 responses per minute and how it looks, and I'll model 12 responses and how it looks. And the teachers really can see, if you're only getting 4 responses, usually the teacher is talking too much, attending to some off-task behavior in a way that's not productive, and they can see if you move the lesson 12 responses per minute, how much more vitality the lesson has.
Thank you so much, and that will be it for all the questions today. Again, thank you, excuse me, thank you for attending the event today. This presentation will be on demand for the next 90 days. We will be sending you a post-survey for follow-up to build future events. And again, thank you for your participation today, and don't forget to rejoin us for our next session in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, we will have Nancy Marchand-Martella. Dr. Marchand-Martella will be whose topic will be on effective strategies and programs for adolescent learners. Again, thank you very much, and join us in the next 10 minutes. Thank you.